you're not going to lose your job. You'll just retrain and upskill in how to actually use the AI to actually be more effective in
Yep.
your job before. So
Mm.
that's essentially the
Yeah.
shift that's going to happen over time.
Hey friends, I'm Caitlin Sapir, and you're listening to AI and Anxious, a show making the AI future less scary, one conversation at a time. And this is Cozy AI. So myself and my guest today are in PJs, which is very fun. So my guest today is Sean Hunter. He is the Director of Operations and Innovation at MARTA Education. Sean brings over 12 years of experience in digital transformation and organizational change with a deep focus on healthcare education systems. As healthcare organizations navigate the complex integration of AI into their education and training programs, Sean is at the forefront of developing strategies that balance innovation with proper data governance. From implementing learning management systems for thousands of staff to leading major digital transformation initiatives, Sean has seen firsthand how technology can revolutionize healthcare education. Today, we will explore how MARTA is addressing the challenges of AI adoption while protecting sensitive healthcare data and ensuring their workforce is properly equipped for an AI-augmented future. Welcome to the show, Sean. Thank you for wearing PJs to my
Yes.
Cozy AI podcast today. Really appreciate it. Sean and I have worked together in the past. He's a very talented executive and innovation leader, and I'm really excited to share with the audience and my friends today about your career journey. It would be awesome if you could just give a little bit of a rundown on how your experiences with digital transformation more broadly has shaped your perspective on leadership in today's AI-driven world.
Yeah, thank you. And I think some of that is all too kind, but I'll try and do some of the questions justice. So yeah, as you mentioned, a big part of my career has been in digital transformation, which has always been about leveraging technology to improve our business, whether it be financial improvements, operational improvements, or staff or student experience-based improvements. And over that, what I've learned over those years is that the successful change is less about the tech itself and more about the people using it, how you bring them along with that journey. And I don't see AI as any different to that. It's a very powerful tool, yes, and it's obviously forefront in new technology, yes, but the adoption is still going to be dependent on communication, on ongoing education for staff, on trust for the staff to understand how it's being adopted, why it's being adopted, and what does it mean for them and what's the impact to them. So that's a big part of any sort of learnings of change initiatives, technology or other based. It's all about dealing with the people that are being impacted and trying to come at it from their point of view. And if you can address that and build trust with them and they're comfortable, then the adoption and the implementation of whatever that tech is will have a higher success rate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many staff as well to manage, especially in your world. I think it's interesting because, you get to see like the scale at which you need to try and have that transformation, and also the behavior of people at scale with regards to emerging technology like AI. So what have you seen? Because we talk a lot about anxiety in this podcast, what kind of patterns or general, attitudes and I guess reactions to just, this wave of generative AI, but I guess AI also more broadly.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when you do have such a diverse and broad workforce, you're going to have very different, thoughts on it or different anxiety levels across the organization. Some will adopt it easy because they might be in the tech space or tech sphere and want to jump all over it. Some will very much be on job security, so they're very anxious about, does this mean I'm going to lose my job? Which we hear a lot of. And it's like, well, no, but elements of your job might be replaced with a automated tool or an AI tool to make it more efficient or take that that task away, and then we can get you to focus on
Mm,
higher value tasks. So definitely job security is always going to be a big one until
mm.
the knowledge or education starts to increase.
Yeah, right.
Right. So once their knowledge increases, then the job security or
Mm,
anxiety around job security should start to drop down a bit.
mm,
The other areas will be around security. So there's risks
mm.
around data and privacy, especially when you're talking about either an education or a health-based organization that's got a lot of staff, a lot of patient data. So
Mm,
then what does it mean for that data, and how do I maintain that privacy and security inside the organization, inside
mm,
Australia, all of those things. So they're
mm.
definitely elements at different levels where people are anxious about AI. And a prime example of that is, if people have access to chat tools like ChatGPT and then they go and
Yep.
share information in it because they're trying to formulate a response for a report, well, all of a sudden they've just shared potentially
Mm,
personal information or private information into
yeah.
that data set. Um,
Yeah.
Other areas I've seen or heard, they're more anxious about, well, how do I use it? So,
Right.
and am I going to break something? It's like, well, again, it comes back to an understanding or a knowledge gap. You think you're going to break something,
Mm,
or how do I keep up because it's moving so fast every week, every month, every quarter? There's
mm.
a new tool, there's a new, there's something else coming
Right.
out.
Right.
And it really, as I said, comes back down to how do I, what do I use it for? So that education or knowledge gap
Mm,
is really going to be
mm.
key for organisations.
Yeah.
So essentially, we need to help employees see that AI as an assistant rather than a replacement
Yeah,
for
for
their
sure.
jobs.
But yeah, I mean, I find it really interesting you're so right with the speed of information too. I mean, of course, in the healthcare education space, you also want to be as up to date with, research and innovations in that space. So I guess there's a bit of a, parallels there as well in terms of the work that you've been leading for a bit of time. But how do you find approaching because it is such a rapidly changing space and there's, as you said, there's new tools and there's new models. There's also people are uncovering different use cases all the time. Like, how do you keep people up to date without overwhelming them? Or is that an ongoing challenge, I suppose?
It will definitely be an ongoing challenge, depending
Mm,
on the size of the organisation too. So if we're talking about, large 10,000 plus is what we're talking about, where I'm
mm,
Marta, where I'm working now, is that
mm,
you can't move that fast. The organisation literally doesn't actually move as quick as the technology
right.
does. So by the time you do some potential research, you write a paper, you get approval to implement a tool, well, there's already 10 new ones. So
Mm,
it's organisations are going to have to change how they actually approach or adopt
mm,
technology like this. How do they create an environment that allows people to test and innovate and trial, fail fast, replace it with something else until they get the right one, and then they can move on with implementing that for the organisational changes or improvements or benefits they're looking for. But at the staff level, it's going to be an ongoing educational piece.
mm,
And again, when you've got a diverse range of staff who are not, you got technology or digital literacy going from 0 to 100, you need to constantly manage that inside your workforce. So having a single workshop or a single online learning package or tool is not going to be enough. You're going to have to constantly, refresh, get some champions inside different teams so they can be part
mm.
of initiatives and encourage them to. I always like to just have a play, right? If I get a piece of technology or tool, I'll play with it for a while to
Mm.
understand or work it out. But yeah, encourage that sort of innovative sort of thinking, or give them the time and space to be able to make those
Yeah.
mistakes in order to make an informed decision after it.
Right, right. Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point because there's this new concept. Well, it's probably not a new concept, but there's this concept of, okay, yes, AI is such a rapidly changing space. And also there's an assumption or a need to have a technical baseline. So there are companies that are approaching learning AI through task-based learning. So essentially, teams they try and solve real problems from their backlog using AI. So the knowledge is able to stick a lot easier rather than generic tutorials because they're solving a pain point they already have. I was speaking to someone about this yesterday, actually, where they're engaged, like they're a consultancy that delivers generative AI solutions through a couple of different partnerships. And essentially they would go into these companies that are already quite established, like, multi-million, multi-billion revenue businesses. And their issue was that they had all these great ideas and lots of these items in their backlogs that they just knew they would never get to, and are now able to do, these kind of quick proof of concepts or MVPs with the new AI tools that they've been given. So I do think that while obviously it's important to have education that can be consumed by a lot of different types of people in an organization, I feel like it doesn't really stick until they're solving a problem that actually causes. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So obviously once you increase the base knowledge, I guess, for the organization around AI, you can then go, okay, here are some of the problems we want it to solve. Or as you said, in that scenario, here are some specific tasks that we're going to give to areas or teams to then go and embed their knowledge, and therefore continuously learn from that point onwards, right? So 100%. I mean, that's, a base grounding might help. Base grounding and knowledge will probably help the overarching workforce from an anxiety perspective, removing their anxiousness of AI. But then the areas that wanting to adopt it and get the benefits and efficiency out of it, well, they're going to have to be part of whatever the change is going to be, whatever those tasks are that you're wanting to replace, to automate, to make more efficient, etc. So that's how they're going to adopt and embed it. But the general workforce, that's only going to be, 90, there's only going to be 10% of the workforce. The other 90% at least needs to understand why are we doing it, and do I understand it, and am I safe?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is hard because, with the security side, and it just feels like everyone is using AI so differently within the organization. Like, have you established policies and procedures and kind of general approaches to how you want your employees to use AI, or is that still something that you're like developing? Also, if you don't know, that's fine, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's in development. There are some, absolutely, because Meta understands and realizes that it's going to have a position. Otherwise, staff are going to go off and start using the tools without that position or without that governance and guidance created. So yes, there is things in place and continue to be worked on, because it is such a moving and evolving sort of beast. But they've even tried to create, internally their own environments to have a Meta GPT version of Chat GPT, so allow them to control the data and the security associated with that.
Yep, nice.
But again, a big part of what we'll do is we'll adopt the AI tools inside our large vendors that we use. So we'll be using it not necessarily as the forefront of developing tools. We would be embracing our vendors and what they've used and what they've implemented, Copilot, etc. Because you're a big Microsoft shop, for example. So
yeah.
That's how the adoption will probably happen in some large organizations for a while, until they go, okay, now we understand a bit more. We can see how it works. We've got a knowledge base up. We want to solve specific problems now that they can't solve for us out of the box.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think it's obviously such a difficult problem. Like, I talk to a lot of different, executives and managers, and I guess people in that position who are responsible for trying to understand the policy. But even when you have the policies, I mean, you don't necessarily, like, how do you even know that your staff, I mean, you can obviously see if you've got this internal, like, Meta GPT, you can see the interactions through that and you have transparency. But how do you manage, I guess, the unknown of whether the employees are also just like on the sly using, ChatGPT or Claude, and they're putting like some of that data in there? Like, yeah.
Exactly. That's the big risk for any organization. Any large organization that has data and compliance concerns will go, how are we ensuring that staff aren't doing it? I guess no different to staff have mobile phones and the ability to take photos, or how are we addressing that?
Mm,
Staff have laptop devices that they take home or might work remotely. How do we ensure that whatever they're looking at on their phone is not easily accessible by somebody else in the public? So it's all
right.
to me it's the same thing. It's just the AI tools have probably accelerated it significantly recently.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was two new models that were released just this week: a Claude Sonnet 3.7 and GPT 4.5, which was actually earlier this morning. So yeah, I think people also do get excited, and they kind of, usually every person, whether they're aware of it or not, they have a problem in their mind that they would love to solve, and they of course think, AI is this magic tool, which it certainly can do amazing things, but it's not a solve all, especially generative AI. But I think the temptation, if a new model comes out and they think, well, that problem I've been trying to solve for a long time, maybe I can throw that in this
Oh, yeah.
model and kind of throw the care to the wind. Yeah, but yeah, there's a level, I think, with AI anxiety. Because obviously I think about this a lot, but I was thinking today, you know, part of the anxiety is just the fact that, we can't predict when new models are coming out. We don't know how good they're going to be. Even with Sonnet 3.5, it made me excited, but of course, it's almost like AI. It's great when it can solve problems and it's intelligent, but you almost don't want it to be too good,
Can
right?
we tell?
Like, I don't want it to be too good, because even today, like, I have, one-on-one clients, and I do some consultancy where I build like AI workflows and AI agents and things like that for, people in particular roles in the white collar field. And, I obviously use AI pretty much in every aspect of my own workflow. And using Sonnet 3.7, I was thinking to myself, why do they even need me, really? Like, the questions I'm asking the AI model, some of my clients could just, if they just knew the questions to ask, it kind of like potentially removes the need for the consultant. And I was like, but it wasn't that I don't know, maybe I'm just weird, but it doesn't make me anxious in the sense that I'm not useful anymore. I just find it really fascinating, because then I think, okay, well, we've spent decades building like managers who coordinate work or consultants. AI can instantly do that. Now, what's a manager's value? What's a consultant's value in 2025? And I think it's becoming the AI human interface. That's what I feel like,
Yeah,
translating AI
I think
outputs into human contexts, and human needs into AI inputs.
I think that one of the things you're sort of touching on there is your your knowledge and understanding of the tools and the use of the tools is what makes you invaluable then. So you put that back into
Thanks,
an
Sean.
organization. You're welcome.
Thank
But you put that,
you. Yeah.
there's a plug for you. But you
Thank
put that
you.
back into an organization, that's the same thing, right? I mean, there are tools out there that can do a lot of work that a lot of our staff can do, or help reduce their their workload, so we have capacity
Mm,
to do higher value tasks. But do we use them? No. Is it a knowledge gap that we don't know how to use them, that they're out there, that we don't have the people with
mm,
the skill set and the knowledge to do that? So once that builds
mm,
up, then absolutely you can start to say, well, certain, you know, people might get anxious about their roles, but it's more, can't remember, I read it a while ago, but it's more about the people who know and understand how to use the AI tools. Everybody's going to
mm.
get upskilled. They're the ones that are actually going to be, you're not going to lose your job. You'll just retrain and upskill in how to actually use the AI to actually be more effective in
Yeah.
your job before. So
Mm.
that's essentially the
Yeah.
shift that's going to happen over time.
True, true. I do enjoy it, because I just feel like I can definitely focus more on my vision and the fun stuff, versus, yeah, some of the not even administrative tasks, but just, yeah, it's hard to explain when I'm doing this work. It's more like it's almost like I am able to clone myself in a way, is probably more what it feels like to me. It feels like there's a version of me, and admittedly, it's a little bit more robust and isn't affected by how I'm feeling that day and if I've slept well or not. It's kind of like
Yeah.
it's
You've
like
gone and
the
created a digital
well
twin without
rested.
that. Yep. Yeah.
Right. I've got a digital twin that has been well rested,
All the
had
human
all
elements
of her
away.
macros. Yeah, like is just yeah, exactly. Everything's balanced. It's kind of like me on my best day, I think is my AI companion. And I love that because it is like having that, yeah, the digital twin or the colleague that can help me do the back and forth without having another person there because like I train the model so that it does think and behave and reason like me. So yeah, which obviously
Sit there
says a
having
lot about my
conversations with it.
ego. It's obviously it's a it's a dark thought to have, that I'm just so obsessed with myself that I had to make a digital clone. But yes, but I do think it is, you know, when I guess organizations are looking at like regulating AI tools and that you don't want to go so far that you're just obsessing over controlling usage. I actually think it would be interesting to find a way to measure augmented performance. So, creating AI productivity metrics that reward enhanced output, not necessarily like tool restrictions. So I think that teams that would be able to quantify AI human performance would work better because they're working with the tools and yeah, obviously not letting the anxiety take
I think
over of the fear.
that's a pretty advanced technological organization as well as an AI adoption organization to be getting to those levels. I
Right.
think
True.
we're far from that in organizations in Australia. There might be some that will get
So
there,
true.
but again, it'll be industry specific, right? If you talk about large industries that are bureaucratic, red
Mm.
tape, they move very slowly. So any of that
Yes.
will take years and years to do, and they'll
Mm.
be forced to get there because everybody around them is already there. So they won't be at the
Yep.
forefront. They won't be the leading edge of technology and want to run with it,
Right.
and they'll follow it and follow it slowly until they're comfortable.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I guess that's you're going for like the low hanging fruit or what's like the minimal, not minimal effort, but yeah, if you're trying to move a slow moving beast, what are the activities that you can pick, I suppose? Like what's the easiest things that you can do and then keep building upon that for those industries. It is so, yeah, it's so true. Like it totally depends on the industry, right? Like healthcare is, you and I know, quite a different beast to every other industry, with regards to technology adoption. And obviously, the stakes are so high. And the data security is obviously the most precious thing. In the healthcare industry too. So it's a tough one, isn't it? Have you
Yeah.
seen, have you like so far, I guess in the past couple of years, because I would say, 2023 onwards has been the build of this, exponential curve of AI tools and adoption. Maybe give me some, do you have any success stories or anything that, some positive AI stories that have actually worked like in your space?
I think the success stories there in and around, AI chatbots. So you've got the ability to
Mm,
improve student, patient, staff experience, remove wait times, etc.
mm,
by having a chatbot there to answer a whole bunch of level one, if I call it,
mm,
questions or queries, right? So it doesn't have to have a staff member there answering those emails or those phone calls, right? So you've got that's there, quite a simple model and working.
mm,
Then you start to get into some automation. Now, it's a fine line from what I've seen at the moment. It's not AI automation, I don't believe yet, but it's the stages towards it because they are starting to get
mm,
familiar with, using, different tool sets to actually truly a task-based automation work that's going on. So it's then a step
mm,
to go, okay, from there, go to the next stage of AI automation. So let that, AI tool or model to actually control that for you versus you
mm.
programming individual
Right.
steps together and hanging it all together, right? So
Yeah.
um, And again, because it's embedded in some of the tool sets that we have as a large organisation. So you start to see, from an education perspective, AI tools built behind them to understand your learning patterns, understand your I guess your experience and your career, and then start to serve up learning and information based on that, or based on the goals that you've created in the career development tool. So you start to see all those tools working, and there's some really positives there as well. But again, they're not the AI that I would see that really needs to come into organisations to go right. I know, I know AI is not just about operational improvements and efficiencies, but that's where it's going to start. That's where it's going to take away a whole bunch, 20% plus of mundane daily tasks that allows an organisation to use that capacity for other innovative or creative decision-making work, or through natural attrition, it's going to help it manage its cost, because it's like we're not replacing people's jobs by doing this tool, but if we have a 20 or 30 or 40% turnover, different organizations, obviously, then the cost of recruitment, if we've built AI tools to handle 20% of his workload, that cost starts to disappear because we're not replacing every single person that leaves.
Right.
So you get a lot of those sort of, that's what I've seen, a little bit of that at the moment. But I'd really love to see the next sort of level. But again, the time it takes and in organisations to get the approvals to, unfortunately go through the process of research and business cases and funding, et cetera, et cetera.
Of course, yeah, all that fun stuff. Well, do you think that, attrition is such a big thing in healthcare specifically? I mean, there's the retirement wave, and there's a huge amount of, knowledge loss across the board, and then also just general attrition, especially in healthcare. Do you think that AI, like generative AI or these AI tools, like, do you think that potentially by implementing them, do you think that can make people's jobs more enjoyable therefore they might stay? Like, I'm not sure.
Well, if you got the retirement wave, you probably can't control too much of that. They get to a certain age anyway, and it's time to retire, or the shift work, or the or the bedside work is no longer what they want to do. But I 100% agree that if you're able to have and implement some AI tools to take away some of those daily, mundane, administrative tasks and let them focus back onto the patient, or focus back on care levels for different patients, which is what is their driving force as to why, for example, they became a nurse or a doctor, etc. Then they'll be happier. Will they be in the workforce longer? Potentially. But I think you even have to go back further than that and go, well, if we do that, is the workforce more attractive to the newer generations?
True. Yeah.
So that's probably more what it is if we make the job or the role and the functions of that role more attractive by saying, well, yes, this is the tasks that you will be doing, and this is the tasks that traditionally you won't be doing because it's being replaced with these tools. But even to go back further, getting to education, well, you need to be able to get to a point where you can produce trained and qualified staff faster. So, an enrolled nurse, 18-month program through a diploma, and a registered nurse, 3-year bachelor program. So, if we're not getting the intakes through those programs, you're not going to actually ever fill the skill gap that's coming or is already here for healthcare workers.
Right.
So a whole shift has to happen to the job role itself, as well as the education and the speed of actually getting people into the role and making the role more attractive by removing some of that mundane daily tasks, but still maintaining that quality that's needed, that data integrity that's needed, and providing that high level of patient care by the bedside.
Yeah, definitely. And
easy problem to solve by the sound of it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's so fun. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll be that will be something on the roadmap, obviously, for the AI companies. So then, do you use, like, how does AI right now come into, like, the content and training piece at Marta? Or
It
You don't
doesn't
have
right
to tell
now.
me. It's
You
fine.
know, it doesn't right now, but I can see how it can, especially when you've got to
Mm.
have content or curriculum redesigned and developed, or
Yes.
move from face to face to online to interactive, etc.,
Mm.
etc. So 100%, I can see how there's got to be a place, an existing tool or something out there that helps you do that shift, uh,
Mm.
and then continue to maintain it in that fashion. So you're
Mm.
creating again, capacity in your teaching workforce to provide a better learning experience for the student. So therefore, providing a higher quality of student, improving your
Mm.
retention rate, etc. So it all has a flow-on effect.
Mm.
If your staff have more time to do what is their primary job, whether it's caring for a patient at the bedside or
Mm.
supporting a student through their learning journey to get to actually a
Mm.
qualification to get into the industry.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you get rid of all of those other tools, other tasks, that really are not providing value to the student or the patient?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so how do you like what's your general approach to like staying up to date with anything in the AI space or emerging technology? Like what does your day-to-day look like? Because I think it's quite interesting. It varies so much from person to person. And
Mm.
there's no real like, well, there are different ways to do it and there's some ways that are more efficient than others, but also it comes down to your use case as well. So it's like you kind of can't necessarily do it wrong. If the only wrong way, I think, is just not just burying your head in the sand and not doing
Yes.
anything with it. And obviously, I'm an expert. I'm a AI specialist, so the way I do things probably is a level above how most people are doing things. But on that vein, though, I'm
Uh,
curious to know from your perspective, like, yeah, what's your approach?
yeah, there's a few different things. I mean, there's a lot of conversations and making sure I'm up to date with whatever our vendors are actually doing. So where are they putting their research and their development
Mm.
time into? Because essentially, if they're coming to a point of having some AI tools in their platform, then I don't have to worry about it. I just need to have to understand what it is so we can implement it when it comes
Mm.
in, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, is that use case that you're doing going to benefit us? Yes, it is great. It's available in 6 or 12 months. We're going to adopt it and roll it out.
Mm.
So
That's
that
cool.
that part
Yeah.
is, what are the vendors doing? Because
Yes.
that's going to help the organisation, because I'm already
Yep.
paying a license fee,
Of
support fee,
course.
etc. So I might as well
Right.
adopt it.
Right. That
Uh,
makes so much sense. And it means you can have, like, if you're going along with their kind of AI tooling roadmap and they have, instead of, these models dropping like they have this week and you have all this, like that's what causes a lot of
uh,
anxiety too, because it feels like it kind of comes out of nowhere, even if there's like whispers and rumors and all these types of things. I think that's such a good approach, having like a vendor like Microsoft, for example, that they can go, hey, we're going to share with you what the roadmap is looking like, and we together can design, or you take a brief from them or you co-design
uh,
education that's going to help the workforce be able to do that. Because you're so right, like it is, I do think that time frame of like 6 to 12 months is obviously far more reasonable than trying to stay, like some people are doing like daily experimentation with different models, and I just think that's not reasonable. I mean, yeah, it's easy for me or someone else who's specifically dedicated to the AI space to be doing those things, but it's just so unreasonable, especially in an industry like healthcare, to expect people also with such a like more like a nuanced technical ability to be able to do that. It's like trying to just find like where's the reasonable balance of expectation of, how up to date someone can reasonably be as
yeah,
like,
yeah, 100%.
you
And so you've got your vendor side of things. It's sure people do, and I do myself, your own sort of research, and you play with different tools and
mm,
at home, etc. But the application of that into your organization is a bit different, because like, well, that might be my
right.
personal approach to at least have a
Mm,
grounded knowledge of what's going on. Um, what's the industry doing, or what's the industry bodies doing from a governance point of view? Are they actually
mm,
endorsing the use of AI? And, if I talk about in the education space, are they endorsing the
mm,
use of AI in managing assessments? Because if they don't, then I can't apply it.
Right.
So so if they're going, well, no, we're risk adverse, we're anxious about what it's doing in that
Mm,
space. So then it's like you work
mm,
with them to say, well,
mm,
what is it
mm,
you're talking about? How are you trying to use it? What are some of
mm,
our industry partners doing? How are they implementing some tools
mm,
in that space?
mm.
And then trying to work, and then also going along to some innovation events and hubs, etc., in Brisbane. That okay, what problem are they trying to solve, and do I have the same problem? And therefore, I want to know more because that can help solve my problem.
Right. Yeah, totally. I do think it is that communal, problem solving in so many ways. I think that's really like the fascinating part of watching like how, society and groups and industries, how we all come together because we have to. We cannot try. I feel like a lot of people do this where they go, "Oh, I'm just going to like figure out my own little, AI pathways and make that work for me," which is fine. But as always, you really need to like the power of numbers is very strong, especially in this space. So yeah, that's very interesting. And but it's kind of annoying, isn't it? That it just feels like learning the AI tools, even though they're amazing tools, and I like obviously I love technology, but it also feels like a second job for so many people now. It's like you have
Yeah.
your regular role and then you kind of go home and go, okay, well, got to stay up to date on the models, and maybe I'll get some time to experiment with the AI models, or I need to hire someone. I need to do a consult with an AI specialist so that I actually know what's going on. And yeah, I think it's that right now it's like double the effort. I'm hoping that once there is a better grasp on AI, it will mean that the things that took them a long time won't take them as long. Therefore, it's like we're just investing a lot of time now to get up to speed, like over the next, 1 or 2 years. And we'll start to see like a really like big uplift in ROI in making our lives easier and better and a bit, like I felt like we didn't need more work to do, essentially.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
we as a society, we don't need more things to do. Like we're already so exhausted from like, working our jobs, so then having to upskill in AI. And then not to mention just our personal lives, like, people have families and we have friends and we have to, you know, we have to run, we have to go
Like,
and do exercise
right, we
and
have
we
to do
have to like,
exercise, we have to do life admin. Exactly. You got all of that the
right.
AI tools can't do that for me. They can't go for a run and help me
No,
lose weight, right? I have to do that myself. Um, so yeah,
damn it.
yeah, exactly. If anyone can do that, I reckon they'll make a fortune. Um,
Mm,
I think, yeah, you're right, and it is obviously an extra load on people trying to keep up to date and what's going on. But you sort of wonder, is it any different? It's just escalating or elevating faster. Is it any
mm,
different to 10 years ago when, you know, mobile technology changes and the speed of data packets and whatever else changes between devices and
mm,
smartphones, et cetera, et cetera. So and people had to keep up with that technology in their own time as well in order to obviously adopt
right.
it in their workforce. I
Yeah.
think it's
I think it
happening
was easier
again, but
though. I think it
well,
was easier, to be honest. Do you know what I
it
mean?
is because it was because it's moving faster now, right?
Yes.
So that's why it's harder. And I think, to be honest, whether that gets easier for people and they do less time in keeping up with industry trends, or
Mm,
there are more AI specialists in organizations.
right.
So organizations start to employ AI specialists, and that's their job. Their job is
Yeah.
to keep up with the industry, keep up
Yes.
with what's going on with the different models, and do recommendations and build teams internally to implement those models for the benefit
Yeah.
of the organization.
Right.
That's the shift that hasn't happened yet,
Right.
but probably will happen.
Right. Yeah. Do you have any sort of like AI specialist, or I don't know, or even like not even like, that specific role,
So,
but do you find that there's like AI champions? Because I feel like these people emerge in these industries and companies. I interviewed someone recently, Chris, and he actually was counterterrorism and like literally just like he was a police officer for the majority of his life. and he just got very interested in AI, and he kind of became like an AI enabled cop, and then everyone would kind of go to him in the like police services group, and he was kind of identified as like not necessarily like officially an AI specialist, but just someone who took more of an interest in AI, and then others could learn from them. So do you find that you're seeing any of those types of, people popping up in the organization?
Imagine there are. I haven't bumped into anybody that sort of talks about that they're a AI specialist, right? So
No, but like more just like,
but yeah, but
yeah.
then so yeah, there are people, like myself. There are other people with innovation
Mm,
functions in their role that no
mm,
doubt are doing it, but it's not a. I don't think yet organisations have put their time and money behind setting up AI teams, AI specialist teams
yeah.
yet.
Yeah, I
Well,
think like it'd be
industry
interesting.
specific, obviously.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. This is just me thinking out loud now, but I think it'd be interesting if you had, because when in my previous company, EduVid, we offered this course that was basically an aged care risk assessment champion. So I think there'd be a call out to basically all the workforce in a given aged care services company, and people would put their hand up, oh, I want to be, I want to be this particular champion, and then they would take the course. And the course, I do believe, was like, I want to say it was 10 hours, so it was like a decent amount of work. They'd have to do it over a few weeks. But I just think, what is your opinion on, imagine theoretically, if you created like this, or in partnership with someone, you created this AI champion course, like, but more grounded in healthcare, and obviously like the work that Marta is doing, and just having like maybe a handful of people in different parts of the organization, and like they are like trained up a little bit more than others.
I think
Thoughts?
that's well, as I said, I've sort of mentioned a few things today, and it is you've got your wider knowledge gap, which is separate. What we're talking about here is
Mm.
building or increasing the AI, let's call it AI literacy of half
Yes.
a dozen people that are embedded within the organization, different departments,
Mm.
different that the end can actually use that knowledge to solve problems or
Mm.
increase other champions within inside the organization. So I
Mm.
think that's, somebody's going to have to provide the knowledge. So it's got to have to come from some way. And the only way it's
Mm.
going to happen is if somebody's attending some training or going along
Mm.
to, whatever the online or face-to-face training is for a period of time to upskill,
Mm.
or
Yep.
they're doing it themselves 20 hours a week after their day job to upskill themselves because that's an interest of
Yeah.
theirs.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
organizations should probably go, well, we know we need it. If there is
Mm.
something like that out there, then yes, let's find 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 champions internally, throw them through that training, get that
Mm.
knowledge up, and then start to get them to collectively work on problems internally and find
Mm.
solutions for them.
But is there a way, now I'm just going off the rails, Sean.
Yeah. Okay, go
So,
for it.
so, but in terms of like when you're looking at budgets and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you, because obviously it's all good and well, like you like it's a great idea and mandate to obviously, have great education and training internally for your workforce. But, if there's not necessarily like a clear ROI between putting someone through an AI champion course and then what that's going to result for in the organization, like, yeah, how do you think, I don't know, how does it translate with kind of AI
Well,
specific projects? I feel like that's what's stopping people, because it's like they go, yeah, that's good in principle, that's good in a concept, but then, how does that actually translate to business outcomes?
yeah. I think for me, if I saw value in that training and whatever it is, right? But we're talking about AI specific training. It could be anything. But if I
Yep.
see value in that training, both for the individual because they've shown an interest in it and and a drive to learn. So therefore you're encouraging that. But if I can see that the outcome of that will benefit the organization because we have some projects, or I want to run some projects or some proof of concepts using that knowledge, then I'm all for it. Budgets aside, I will work out a way as a leader and a manager of different budgets. How can I actually do this investment in the individual, but then invest in the individual, provide those outcomes and benefits for the organizations? It's hard when you do your budgeting and you go, okay, I've got $100,000 in my budget for staff training. I've already used it, so I've got no more money. So sorry, I can't do it for you. We can't approve that.
Right.
But it's like, well, hang on, do an assessment of what the actual value and benefit and outcome is going to be, not for the individual, because obviously the last thing you want to do is have an issue where you can't retain the person just because of some training, and they decide to move on, right? So there's obviously some of that comes into it. But then you go, well, if we do this and I can work out a way to get it paid or get it included in the budgets, etc., then I want you to work on these projects throughout the course of the next 12 months to obviously give us the value back, or not the value back, it's the wrong word, to help us find the value in the organization and find the benefits and actually get the improvements and efficiency. So it is a juggle, but to me, it depends on the leader, right? It depends on the leader of that area. If they're going to think in the way that is encouraging of that environment, that wants staff to learn and improve, because if they're learning and improving, they're happier, but they're also improving your workforce, your working environment.
Totally.
Or they're just sitting to, no, I've got to manage the budget, I've got to manage the people, I've got to manage the X amount of widgets we have to produce every month, right? So this depends on the leader and the environment. So that's how I'll probably approach it differently.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know that you're very good with making things happen. So yes, people could definitely take. Yeah.
But on that point, people need to get creative, right? How do you?
Well, that's it.
Creative on the way that we've worked together before, right? And I had to get creative on getting the funding. So what was out there in order to get the approvals and get it? Can it be co-funded by a government innovative, and then we can put the other part in and then get the benefits. So it's all about, just because you might not have the full money in your budget as a leader or a manager in an organization doesn't mean you can't do it. There are other avenues to go, well, I can apply for different grants, I can apply for different, whether it's in innovation or not, to then help me co-fund it. And then I go, right, I can then put the other 50% or 25% of the money into it as well. So I've done that a few times, obviously with yourself in EduVid and with the AI stuff that we did, but also with VR and trying to get virtual reality being used in an education delivery sense. So, there are ways to find money from an innovation and test the boundaries and push boundaries a bit further.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's great. Thanks, Sean. So this has been a really great chat. I really appreciate it. I usually ask my guests at the end of the podcast to give me some crazy predictions so that we can look back on this episode in 5 to 10 years and see what actually came true. So looking at the horizon of the next 5 to 10 years, where do you think we are potentially going to end up with the rapid acceleration? It's a hard question.
20-hour, working 20-hour weeks, not 40, 50, 60, because AI is doing all the administrative tasks and functions, and we are employed for the human-centric decision-making that and creativity, etc., that we can do. So complete shift in the way that the working day is today.
Yeah, that would be great. I think we need more naps. We need to read more books. I know that because I'm often, I build AI agents and AI workflows and things like that. I do, a lot of my time is now spent kind of just managing the systems that I built. And often I'll just be sitting, I am managing the systems, but then it might take a little bit of time to kind of, run a certain system. So I'm usually just sitting there reading a book, just waiting for it to like run through the process that it's needing to do, which, yeah, I've already seen in my work. Just getting a little bit more downtime. Like I'm still working throughout the day, but I get more breaks, I would say, than previously. I'd just be obviously working like nonstop on the
Yep.
grind.
More mindful breaks, less stress, etc. That's all going to come into it
Yeah.
if we can remove some of that mundane
Yeah.
daily tasks.
Yeah, I hope so, because I do feel like it's going the other way right now of, learning AI as a second part-time role in addition to the roles that we're doing, and also having the fear that our roles are also just going to disappear and we won't be able to pay our mortgage. So yeah, there's lots of stress in that way, but we can just hold on to the hope that in a few years it will mean that we don't actually have to work as hard at all, and we can just lay back and let some of the AI do some of those tasks that were really annoying and that we had to go for hour-long runs just to get the stress out of our bodies. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Ron. This was, really
That's been
great
fun. Thanks, Kate.
conversation. Thank you. I'm glad you had fun. Thank you again for wearing pajamas as our first Cozy AI episode. I love it. Yep, repping. So yes, if you want to dive deeper into AI generally as a non-coded professional, do check out my course, Gen AI Jumpstart, at blackfeatherai.com, and check out testimonials for the course on my YouTube channel, AI and Anxious. I will also include any relevant links in the podcast description. Thanks for listening, and please do follow or subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date. And any and all star ratings are welcome. Sean should definitely get 5 stars for wearing PJs to this podcast today, and also giving us some very interesting insights into the healthcare world. But that is it for today. Until next time, my friends.
What are we saying to each other? It seems they're trying to teach us a basic tonal vocabulary. It's the first day of school, fellas.